everyone. Welcome to our Early Adventures workshop. We've got Lauren Baker here. She's going to talk to us about childhood nutrition today. She's a registered dietitian in the state of Ohio, so she can tell you all kinds of really excellent information. Have at it, Lauren.
Thank you, Erin. So yeah, like she said, I'm a pediatric registered dietitian in Columbus and a friend of Erin. So I just want to go over a couple basics today on childhood nutrition. We'll talk about how to make a healthy plate, a few tips on setting your little one up for success, and then a couple things on picky eating, since I know this early stage is usually when we run into some picky eaters. And then we probably won't do any questions today, but if there are any questions that you want to submit to Erin, feel free to do that, and we can address those whenever they come through. So let's start. I'm going to pull up the healthy plate. Okay. So here we have what's called MyPlate. We used to use the food pyramid as a way to determine how many food groups you should have throughout the day, but we've moved more to this meal by meal model, and I always like to start everyone off with this just so we are on the same page about what a healthy plate looks like. You can see on this plate we've got half the plate as vegetables, but usually we say fruits or vegetables as half the plate. A quarter of the plate as protein, and the quarter of the plate as starch. On some versions of the MyPlate model, you'll see dairy up in the corner too. Dairy can work as a protein as well, and we'll get into that in a little bit here. But so this is kind of what we want to have in the back of our mind when we're coming up with a plate or a meal for our little ones, for ourselves, for our families. Lots of fruits and vegetables. Quarter of that plate is starch, and a fourth of the plate is protein. So a couple things I like to highlight here. Protein helps to keep us nice and full. It digests a little more slowly, so it keeps us fuller for longer. A lot of times I hear from parents, their little ones just want to eat all day long. They're just hungry, ask for food in another hour. And that can be because they tend towards more carbohydrate foods, higher starch foods that don't have protein in them, things like goldfish crackers, cereal, Pop-Tarts, things like that. But sometimes if we make sure there's a protein in their meal and in their snacks, they feel a little bit more full. We want lots of fruits and veggies. Fruits and vegetables have superpowers in them, I like to say. Those are the antioxidants and the vitamins and minerals that we can't get from other places. So we always want to make sure there's fruits and vegetables in the meal. And at a bare bones, you want to try for at least 3 food groups per meal. So at least 3 food groups, we're moving in the right direction towards a balanced plate there. So this is kind of a nice example. It doesn't look too bad. And then the bottom of this plate here, and this handout has been posted to the Facebook event that you can access. It just gives you some ideas on how to fill in this plate. Couple things to note with some of these starchy vegetables here. We put them more in that grains category than vegetables just because they're a little bit higher in nutrition. They're still totally healthy for us though. So that is the MyPlate method. It's always good to have a copy of this like on the fridge as a reminder. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this one here. And we'll go over just a few things for setting your little one up for success. So we have that plate method. A lot of times I get kids in the clinic who tend to graze throughout the day or want to do more snacking than eating actual meals. And sometimes the remedy for that is just mapping out a nice consistent meal pattern, meal schedule. So what that might look like is 3 meals and then 2 snacks in between. Generally, our little ones are going to get hungry every 2 to 3 hours. So if we kind of set them up like a morning meal, 2 hours later, a snack, 2 hours later, our lunch, usually they feel pretty well energized throughout the day and they don't want to graze as much. And that gives enough time between their meals where they're actually hungry at the meal instead of just like a little bit hungry from having grazed. So that's the first tip, is just try to set up a nice consistent meal and snack schedule as best you can. Once in a while, our kids will have to go to a caregiver during the day or maybe after school care. So as much as you can kind of communicate that with everyone who's with them, just offering them that regular meal and snack schedule to keep them well energized. The other thing I tend to be a little bit more of the protein police because it does help to keep us full. So if we are offering them some regular protein sources at meals and snacks, that's going to guarantee that they feel a little more full from those. And that does not need to be like a huge steak at every meal and snack. It can be something like a string cheese, a scoop of peanut butter, handful of nuts whenever they're ready to swallow that. Some yogurt is a good one too, pretty kid friendly there. So always try to include a little bit of protein in that meal or snack there. And then the last thing I'll say for setting your little ones up for success, two more things, sorry. At the young stage, this is really a time to expose them to new foods. So as much exposure as you can give to them with fruits and vegetables, different foods, they can eat after 12 months, they can eat everything that you're able to eat other than some of those choking foods, which would be like hot dogs, nuts, things like that. Try to give them exposure to all those different foods. The more we give them a variety to their palate, the less likely they will be to be picky eaters later. So, and then just a word on beverages. So at this point, we only encourage water and white milk or soy milk if we're doing more of a dairy-free, or if your child has some dairy issues. We want to try to limit sweetened drinks as much as possible just because of how concentrated the sugar is. And that's anything from like pop and Kool-Aid, lemonade, to even juice, that sugar is a little more concentrated. So if we do juice from 0 to 3 after 12 months, we'd want to stick to no more than 4 ounces a day. But as much as you can, just offer water or that white milk product. Okay, so last thing, just a few tips on picky eating. I often see in clinic parents will come in and they're really frustrated because their 2-year-old who used to eat everything will now only eat chicken nuggets and mac and cheese. So this is very, very common. It's super common for kids to have these food jabs where they'll only want to eat certain foods, even though they ate a wide variety earlier. So a couple suggestions here, but the one thing you want to do is try not to get too anxious about it. It's super normal. Most of the time, kids still grow fine, even if they're only eating like a very minimal amount of things. The more we press into it and say, just try it, or just take a bite, or you used to like this, the more pressure we put on them, the more that mealtime environment becomes really stressful, and the more they shut down and don't want to try things. So do your best to just kind of ease through it. We call it the division of responsibility. So it's up to parents and caregivers to decide what foods to offer when and where, and it's up to the kid to decide how much and which foods they want to eat. So as long as we kind of keep that in mind, that kind of helps to ease some of the frustration with picky eating. Again, I'll emphasize those exposures. As much as we can give them exposures to new foods, to fruits and veggies, to different proteins, things like that, that's just going to help their palate to grow a little bit. And exposure does not necessarily have to be that they're taking it into their mouth and swallowing it. It can be as easy as, tell me about it. What color is it? Take a smell of it. Take a lick of it. They don't have to get to that final stage of chewing and swallowing, because it can take 15 exposures before they're actually willing to try that food. So just be patient, keep trying, let them kind of experience that food a little bit. There's another dietitian here that always says broccoli is really scary the first time you see it, but after you've seen it 15 times, that kind of anxious factor tends to go down. So continue those exposures. And this one is super duper hard, but I always tell moms, really, really try not to short order cook for your little one. So if we get into the habit where they ask for chicken nuggets or ramen or mac and cheese or whatever that food is, and we give it to them every time, that becomes their expectation. That becomes their default. So try as hard as you can to cook one meal for the family. Let them kind of eat what parts of it they will, even if they don't eat all of it, that's fine. The key to this, though, is to always include one safe food in that meal for that child. So if you're making this nice meal of maybe like chicken, rice, and a vegetable, maybe like a steamed vegetable that you pop in the microwave, and you know your child is only going to eat the rice, that's okay. That's their safe food. A lot of times I'll encourage parents to use fruit as a safe food. So if you know like the only fruit your child will go for is bananas, try to incorporate bananas into that meal, that family meal. That way they have some part of it, even if they're not eating the whole meal. And that helps us to not short order cook too much. So last thing, we're going to show one handout. It's a nice kind of step through food groups to be offering our little ones. Okay, let's see. So this is just nutrition guidelines. This is really nice because it kind of breaks out what food groups and how much you should be offering for that different stage. And you can see there's lots of fruits and vegetables. The requirement, the suggestion is lots of fruits and vegetables to be the majority of what they're eating. You can see those juice limitations are also listed on there. And then there is a line for iron. Iron can become important for our little ones. We mostly get iron from red meat sources, but it can also come from fortified cereal and dark leafy greens. You'll get a little bit from there as well. So that is about all I have. This handout is also posted to the Facebook for you to access as well. But thank you for having me. Erin, anything else?
I think that's really great. I don't know if you have any tips. I know here where we are, some families are having a hard time getting food at the grocery store right now. Do you have any tips for kind of quickly finding some information while you're at the grocery store if the protein or the vegetable you had planned or the iron source you had planned isn't there, how to find a substitution kind of on the spot?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Great question. I meant to bring that up too, since it is kind of a weird time to be buying all kinds of
Yeah.
foods and fruits and vegetables. But so one thing I always like to say with the plate method, being half fruits and veggies, what I showed on that handout was all fresh, but it does not have to be fresh. So frozen, canned, and fresh fruits and vegetables can all work within that plate method. So if you were going for like fresh cauliflower or fresh lettuce and there's none left in the store, check the canned aisle, check the frozen section, see if we can just supplement with some of those things. And same thing with proteins. I know here, like it's very difficult to find meat in the stores right now. So we're going for a little more of those canned and frozen options. And those certainly work as nutritious, easy ways to build that healthy meal. Yeah, so I would just suggest that, you know, even if we have to tend towards some of those less fresh options, they still work. They're still part of that balanced meal. And those tend to be a little more frequent in the stores than some of the fresh options.
Excellent.
So,
Yeah, thanks.
yeah.
Yeah, all right. I think this is a great sort of introductory bit of information for parents if they're wondering about some nutrition. And I have one more question that might help our parents. So you're a registered dietitian, but you're over in Ohio. And so if we can't really go to your office, since we're all the way down here in Texas, but if a parent wanted some more, you know, like personalized information about their kids' nutrition or how to concern, what are some ways they can find access to a dietitian here, or you know, whatever town they happen to be in?
Yeah. Definitely. I would first recommend going to your pediatrician's office. Usually there's someone either within the pediatrician's office or someone that they will refer to locally for nutrition. And there are also telehealth dietitians available out there as well that are registered. And that would just be a quick Google search for some of those dietitians, and they would be licensed specifically in that area. And typically some of the insurance plans are now covering those sessions, so you might not even have to pay for that with your normal insurance. But first off, I would suggest going to your pediatrician's office and trying that route or local hospital system.
Great. Thanks so much, Lauren.
You're welcome.
This is really helpful. I hope all the families out there really enjoy it.
Yeah, me too. Thanks.
All right. Bye, Lauren.
Bye. Thank you.